Hey guys, this is going to be the first of several video lessons that we're going to have. So I just wanted to start by reviewing section 1 that you did the worksheet on yesterday. So we'll go through that quickly and then we'll have a couple short videos for the new section that we're covering today. Later in the week I'll Skype in for any questions that you have, and I'll hopefully be able to answer them. In the meantime, if you have any questions, feel free to email me. You should know my email address. If you don't, it's b80@edenca.org. Okay, so the Great Depression. Many of you might not have liked the worksheet. I know it was a little bit involved, but this is a big topic, really important in the history of America. It's really formational for what's going to happen later with World War II and the economy. So anyway, sorry if that was a bit much, but it's very important, so it'll be worth it later for the final. Anyway, so the Great Depression, October 1929, the stock market crashed, and however, the Great Depression wasn't just boom, the stock market crashed and then the economy fell apart. It was a slow decline. Herbert Hoover is president, so you should probably make sure you have notes to this effect. In fact, if you're not taking notes yet, you should probably get your pencil, pen out, whatever you used to write, and some form of a notebook or some paper, so you can have the chapter 21 notes. Anyway, Herbert Hoover is president when this occurs. He won the 1928 election, and he had actually campaigned on the idea of a chicken in every pot. Which was basically there's prosperity for every family. So when Hoover wins, he's basically promising everyone, oh, the economy's going to be great, going to have prosperity, and then the bottom falls out within a year after he's elected. Now, it's not really Hoover's fault, which we'll cover in a few minutes. Really, in the grand scheme of things, presidents have some effect on the way the economy goes, but it's not like they drive the economy and turn it wherever they want to. It doesn't work that way. So anyway, Hoover's president, and as this happens, he has to make a decision, as does every president, of what am I going to do? What am I going to encourage Congress to do? Am I going to encourage Congress to enact laws that are going to try to combat this, or am I going to try to treat this just like any economic cycle? Because our economy always goes down, comes back up, goes down, comes back up. It's cyclical. So how do you treat this? Well, Hoover treated it basically as an economic downturn, but he didn't want to use that word. He's the one that coined the phrase depression in reference to what was going on. He wanted to soften the blow a little bit. He didn't want to call it a crisis. He didn't want to call it a downturn. So he called it a depression. But that ends up being the worst term that is associated now with a bad economic downturn. So anyway, people portray Hoover as someone who didn't do anything. That he basically just let the depression happen and let the country fall apart. Well, he did some things, but his idea was a more conservative one. He wanted people to try to help the economy on their own without a lot of government intervention. And we're going to see FDR was the exact opposite. He wanted the government to do everything. And this goes back to, remember progressivism? Hopefully you remember progressivism, which is the idea that the government is the solution to the problems, that basically it's the government's job to fix things. Well, Hoover wasn't a progressive. He was a Republican, in the same party line as we would understand a Republican to be today. And Hoover tried to let the economy work itself out. Now, he did do some things. It's not like he didn't do anything. He did invest money in public works. He invested close to $500 million, which back then was a lot of money, on public works, like government-funded things. He also cut taxes by a very large amount. He cut taxes by $140 million, which again, back then, considering that in 1939 our federal budget was $9 billion, which is minuscule compared to today. But anyway, that was a sizable tax cut. So he tried to do things that he thought would help out. He also tried to encourage volunteerism or voluntary cooperation. So this is the idea that businesses try to keep all their employees. They try to keep their wages at what they can. However, it's really hard when the economy keeps going down, 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 and values of things keep going down, 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 and people purchasing things, the amount of people purchasing things keeps declining. It's very hard for businesses to hold out against this. So volunteerism, which was his idea just to let the American people take care of it, it didn't really work. However, it might just have been the cycle, the economic cycle of the Depression. But people blamed Hoover so much that places where hobos would stay, like people that were homeless and didn't have jobs, they called them Hoovervilles, which was basically a derogatory term toward Hoover. Now, Hoover did some other things as well. Work relief, you need to put this in your notes. Work relief was kind of like welfare, only you had to work for it. So you would get money from the government, but you had to do some kind of job in order to earn that money. So it wasn't just given to you. And Hoover encouraged some work relief, but he wanted to stay at the state level and the local level. So he also, by the way, tried to balance the budget, which is important. When you're in an economic downturn and you just spend way above your budget, like right now, when we have a budget deficit over $1 trillion, that's a problem, especially when the economy is recovering very slowly, if at all. So Hoover tried that as far as balancing the budget, some work relief. He also tried the Reconstruction Finance Corporation. Now, the Reconstruction Finance Corporation, which, again, in your notes, it gave money, $500 million, on a loan. It wasn't a gift, I guess. It was a loan to businesses. But this actually gave Hoover even worse of a reputation because he gave that money or loaned that money to banks and to businessmen instead of to the people. Now, it's the banks that were falling apart and closing, and businesses are the people. They're the places that employ people. So really, it was a smart move in that sense of putting the money where it would be best used. However, the people wanted it to go in their pockets instead of businessmen's pockets, not recognizing that the businessmen are the ones who employ them. So something that Hoover did that should have given him a good reputation, especially if you look at what FDR did, which we'll see here in the next video, it really should have helped Hoover's popularity, but it didn't. And then Hoover does something else that it really harms him in the long run. He was trying to protect American business, and he passes a tariff. It's the Hawley-Smoot tariff, Hawley-Smoot, Hawley-Smoot tariff. And this tariff raises our tariff level to the highest it's ever been in history. It was almost 50%. So really, the problem with this tariff was that no foreign country is going to buy our goods if we're not buying their goods. So it hurts foreign production, which makes the global stock market go down because we're not buying foreign goods, and if we're not buying them, they're not being produced at as high of a level. And also, other countries aren't going to buy our goods because we're not buying their goods. So it actually, he made the claim that it helped businessmen, it helped our businesses, but it really, it didn't. It was a bad move. So much so that when it came time for the 1932 election, this is one of the things that was a strike against Hoover. Several things the people weighed in the balance here. Do we vote for Hoover? Do we vote for FDR? So if you wanted a subheading, this would be a demand for change. And the people were demanding change. If you remember the 2008 election, that was something that President Obama ran on, was change, hope and change. Now, in 1932, the people want change, and that's what Hoover's going to run for. I'm sorry, that's what FDR is going to run for. Hoover is not running for change. Now, the people looked at the economy and they said, okay, 1929, our gross national product was $104 billion. 1932, $41 billion. So that's essentially a 60% decrease in the gross national product, which is unheard of. Also, there were 28%, roughly 28% of people in America that had no money, no income whatsoever, period. Unemployment during this time period was very high in some areas. Some areas, in Ohio particularly, some places had as high as 60 to 80% unemployment. I believe Toledo, Ohio was the highest with 80%. And then, the final nail in the coffin, if you will, of Hoover's election is something called the bonus army, which you need to put in your notes. The bonus army was basically, there were a bunch of soldiers who they wanted to get their pensions early. They wanted that bonus, they called it. They wanted it paid to them early. And so they go to D.C. They actually march on D.C. and they set up a bunch of camps around D.C. And then they start occupying vacant buildings. Does this sound familiar? Maybe Occupy Wall Street? Now, Occupy Wall Street wasn't for something that people were owed. It was just to protest the economic system. However, the bonus army was kind of like the first Occupy Wall Street. It was really Occupy Washington, D.C. Anyway, so in the summer of 1932, the bonus army shows up in D.C. and they set up a tent town. Everybody's living in tents. It was called a shanty town. And they also start occupying vacant buildings in D.C. Well, Hoover did not like this. It made him look bad. So he gave the order for the army to basically run the bonus army people out of the vacant buildings that they were in, because they were in them illegally. They were trespassing. However, the army took it a little too far, farther than Hoover wanted, and they ran everybody out. And there was some violence, there was some rioting that went on, and it really made Hoover look bad, because it made him look like a meanie. Not only was he, in the eyes of the public, not compassionate about everyone's situation. Here he is giving money or loaning money to rich businessmen who don't need it, in the public's mind. And now he's running off these poor soldiers who just want some payment for what's due them. Well, now this happens before the election of 1932, and you can guess how this is going to go. So here's FDR, this new guy, and he's promising a new deal. His campaign song was "Happy Days Are Here Again." So he was saying, yeah, you're going to be happy again. You're going to have everything you need. He pledged to have government programs to give relief to the poor, and on the other hand, balance the budget. Now, he never said how he was going to do that, but it's what he said he would do, and it's what the people wanted to hear. They wanted to hear that happy days were here again. Everything's going to be fine. Change is going to happen. And so FDR really crushes Hoover in the election. It's a landslide election, and FDR, he's going to take America in a different direction, but we're going to have to look at in the next couple of videos of, did what he proposed, did it really work? And did he even do what he proposed? So anyway, just by way of review for the worksheet you did, just try to make sure you have these things in your notes. If you have any questions on this particular section, you can email me, or I'm going to try to Skype in. It would be Thursday to the class. So anyway, that's it for section 1.